Welcome back to the channel. I'm Crypto Trend Trader, and today we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you it's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please trade responsibly and do your own research. So here we have the Bitcoin. This is the 4-hour chart right here, and I got the TJD Jewel Thief pulled up, and we're basically just been consolidating inside this range. Not too much happening. We do have about, from the bottom to the top, it's about a 17% range though, so it's definitely tradable. But the way I look at it is we're right smack in the middle of it right now. So this is basically the worst place you could take a trade, because a lot of times when you take one of these trades, you want to be getting in where you got in and were like in profit the whole time. Or if you're going to take a short, you want to get in and then be in profit the whole time. But a lot of times when you're in the middle of a range and you take a trade, you're either like break even or in drawdown, or you get the move back up and then you're still in profit, like, or you're still break even. Like a lot of times you just can't wait to get out of that trade. And last thing you want to do is be like excited to get out of a trade at break even. Like it should be the other way around. Like you should only want to take a trade if you know right off the bat you're going to be in profit. And that's where like your edge in the market's going to come from. So that's why I have the TJD Jewel pulled up today. You'll see basically if you've never used this indicator before, it's an awesome indicator. It essentially uses like basically it's like 4 different elements, all tied together in a single indicator. But what it's doing is you're essentially wanting to be in positions or taking positions through the green areas and then taking profit or entering shorts through the red areas. But it also has like hard sell signal in yellow here and hard buy signal down here at the bottom as well. And what you're doing is you're basically trading the trend. When the blue line crosses above the purple, you're going to be essentially going in that like upward trend depending on what time frame you're in. And then when the blue drops down below the purple again, you're going to be going into a downtrend in that period. So once it exits this control zone down here at 20 or at 80 up here, and then it gets that cross, it's going to give you the signal. So basically you want to, throughout the distribution zones, you want to be taking your profit through these red zones here. And you'll see they correspond most of the time with where the heights are at. And then you want to be like accumulating or buying through the green zones, okay? But you'll see sometimes you'll buy through one of these zones and then you'll be in drawdown. So the most important thing to do when you're actually using this indicator is to keep in mind what is the overall trend. So say if you were going to trade this 4-hour, what I would immediately do, and this is not financial advice, but I would go to a daily and I would look at the daily chart and I would say, okay, are we in an uptrend or are we in a downtrend? And looking at this chart right here, you can see we have a series of lower highs and a series of lower lows. So we're clearly in a downtrend. We're in a channel or some sort of sloping downtrend, okay? So in this trend, the most reliable signals are going to be the trend following signals that you get. Like your short signals are going to be much more reliable when you're peaking or coming into a downtrend, and your buy signals are going to be much more reliable when you're going up and going into an uptrend. All right, so right now we are technically in a downtrend, so you want to keep that in mind, okay, before you go trading whatever time frame you're going to trade. I like to always look at like a time frame, substantially larger than it. So here what we're saying is basically we're saying these buy signals are going to be less reliable than the sell signals, because the sell signals are corresponding with the trend, which is a downtrend, as where the buy signals are reversal signals, okay? So when we're getting this accumulation zone or this buy signal right here, it's much less reliable than this distribution zone or this sell signal right here, okay? So we may get flashed like 2 or 3 of these buy signal accumulation zones before this gets exhausted and we get like a big move like that. Let me look at a specific example. Here's a couple right here. We basically get the buy signal right here, and then we still get a massive dump afterwards, and then we get the second buy signal. You get a nice move off of it. That one's much more reliable. And then here we get the sell signal, which is with the trend, just like here we're with the trend. So like that's much more reliable signal. And then again we get the buy signal, comes down, dumps back off, and then we get the buy signal a second time, and then there you go, you get the big move, you get the sell signal, and again a sell signal, and then bam, you jump all the way down, you get the buy signal. So you can see how this indicator would be useful. But again, it's most important when you're using something like this that first you go to the longer time frames and you look at basically what the overall trend is. And you'll see how this is going to be much more reliable, because now we know to look out for a false signal before we get the real signal. A lot of times you'll get two in a row. So like here we get the sell, we get the sell, we get the sell. If you would have just shorted right here, you might have got yourself into trouble, you know what I mean? If you didn't take profits down here or move your stop loss, which is also why that's important as well. But if you sold right here, you immediately, like, basically they try to get the squeeze on everybody, and then, you know, if you took a position out of this, you know, had something in the books, or if you took a short through here and just didn't get squeezed out, you know, you'd be fine. But now just because this turned green and got the buy signal doesn't mean you want to be out of that short, especially if you got in from a good spot like this, where it's likely you're not going to see that higher prices again. You know, I mean, depending on what happens here, because to tell you the truth, as I'm looking at this now, you know, just to kind of, matter of fact, just get some of this off of here. If you just kind of take a look at what we have going on here, so like from this point here where we put in the bottom, this is kind of what I'm looking at right now. You could basically say, I mean, if you're going from like a few wicks right there, you could basically say, all right, we have some upsloping support. And then if you're going from, this was our bottom right here, so you want to go after that. You want to pick a point to the right and draw from that. Okay, so if we're going to go from here, you could say that was a potential target right there. Or you could say more realistically, something like that is probably, you probably would go with something like that more realistically, and that was just like a punch or a fake out or just an attempted rally that failed, an impulse wave failure, something like that. So at this point in time, it looks like we basically have like a little bit of a channel or upward sloping range that we could essentially look to trade in. So in a range like this, if we're assuming, or we're saying this is our range, you know, we also want to look at it from other angles and say, okay, what if we're wrong? What if it's something else? So let's look down here and say, all right, that looks like it's basically like a triple support right there. We didn't get a close below it. It's clearly corresponding with all three of those points. Do we have something like that on the top as well? Well, yeah, we kind of do. So we can come over here and just say, okay, that looks like that's a range also. So now we have this parallel or horizontal basically channel here, and then we have this range here between the green and the purple, between the blue and the red. So now looking at inside of this range, now we're able to get some targets and see where could we potentially see our next move from. So now we're going to go back to the jewel here, Jewel Thief, and we'll look at the knife here, this red and green line that changes colors. That's called the knife. And you'll see when it gets a sharp long point like that, that's indicating that it's the bottom. And again, we want to pay attention to the trend, because when we get the sharp point in green, it's indicating that we're getting like the top, and that will typically, it'll give you like a good spot for a bounce, even if it's not calling the absolute bottom. So you'll see it triggers right here, you get an immediate bounce off of that, you know, even though we get continuation to the downside. So now let's look again and remember what we said about we're going to trade in the direction. We're going to use the direction, the indicator in the direction of the trade. So what do we want to be doing right here? We want to be taking trades to the downside. We want to be following it when it's green. So you'll see when it punches out in front of the blue, and then we get the continuation red, and then we get the sell signal. That's like a triple, that's triple confluence in this indicator. It's three indicators basically together telling you what to do. So then we get a strong trending move down after that. Alright, and then we'll go back up here again, and we'll see we get the green punch through, but it sort of just consolidates sideways. That usually means that that wasn't the knife. Okay, the knife is not necessarily just coming up like this and going sideways like that. The real knife, like the way you really want to get it, is this right here, that sharp point like that. And then that's when you're looking for essentially, like, I don't want to say trend reversal, but, you know, top out of the trend. So you'll see when we get more of a sharper one, we get outside that 80 zone right here, and then into like the higher levels, we make it up, let's see, to like 95.5. That's where we're talking about like actual potential reversal areas, or trend topping out areas. And again, you'll see here on the bottom, sometimes it can come. I mean, this one's down here at -38. That was a powerful one. This one's down here now basically at 0. And that's telling us, okay, we're at 0 now. We're in a downward trend overall. we're moving upward inside of this channel and potentially moving in an upward sloping channel. So realistically, what are we looking for next? We're looking for this support to either hold right here, this area, or we're looking for this top resistance to hold right here. But one way or other, if you look at that, where are we at? We're inside that range, and we're closer right now. You know, if we say this is basically going to be our resistance in the range, and then we say, okay, that's cool. That's if we get up in this area right here, we know we're probably like topping out in this range that we're in right now. And then if you say, all right, let's put in some support down here, well, I mean, hey, we might be getting in there right now. You know what I mean? Depending how this plays out, like we could come down here, we could get a bounce off of this upward sloping support line right here. We could come all the way back down here, and then we'll know, okay, it's probably more realistically just sideways consolidation. We're not getting that upward sloping consolidation. But right now, the way I'm looking at it is this is 1, 2, 3 touches right here, and this is a consistent strong support line we've gotten so far. So if this holds this time, I mean, I think it's very likely that that's our range that we're headed to next. So again, I mean, I'm bearish right now, like midterm, but I mean, that's a 7% move right there. So we could easily see this come down here. If we start seeing any kind of strength come out of it, I think we could pop up. You know, we do have a series of, you know, not that this is going to reverse like the trend on long term, but we have a low, we have a higher low, and then, you know, if we get a swing right here and we punch back up, that would give us another higher low. And then if you look over here, we have a high, a higher high. I mean, this is really just like one higher high. So, you know, if we come back up here and we see this come up to another higher high, I mean, we could be talking about, you know, if we just broke right above that, we could be talking about 11%. So realistically, what we always talk about is we want to be taking trades at the bottom of ranges. So you want to be taking trades at the bottom of a range down here, or you want to be making a short sell or sell an asset at the top of the range. Again, it's not financial advice, but that's going to put you in a better position right off the bat. So, you know, essentially right now, if we drop down out of this green channel right here, you know, you could put your stop loss below that and invalidate the trade and just say, okay, I was wrong. We're either going to come down here and test this, or we're headed back down to lower prices, in which case you could flip short or whatever you want. But at least you knew exactly where you're going to take your trade off of and where you're going to invalidate it. So if you're going to take a long out of this area, you say, okay, if it drops below this area here and invalidates this channel with any kind of candle close below here, all right, I'm going to get out of this trade. But you have to have that like set in stone ahead of time before you go. So, but I mean, that's basically just the way to easily trade this range right now, and use like the Jewel with a couple indicators to give yourself an idea. I mean, what I would wait for at this point in time, you see we got that green right there. What I would wait for is for this to come all the way down. We're getting this cross just now on these two. So we're probably going to get lower, come down here lower. We're probably going to get a nice little continuation punch down. So what I would be looking for is probably at the bottom of this range, in that $7,800 range, we'll get another green accumulation zone trigger over here, and then we'll get that buy signal coming right up out of here. And I think this realistically is the area that you could take that trade off of, up to the top of the range. And there's a lot less risk and a lot more reward. So, and it might not come down there. You could take a small position right here if you want to, and then, you know, something little just to get a taste in case it runs away. But then you could enter a much larger position, you know, down here, and essentially say, okay, if we lose this horizontal support, I don't have to lose much to know I need to get out of this trade. And realistically, it'd be with a candle close. So, you know, you're just looking for a little confirmation, get behind the trend, and just roll with the punches here. So we'll see what happens here in the next few hours and what kind of resolution we get over here. We just got the daily close, and we had got that big dump off of it. So we'll see if it consolidates here again and we get that dump down to here. And I'd love to take a position from this range and you know, look for this essentially just sideways channel to hold up. So there we have it, guys. Crypto trend trader, Bitcoin cracking on the 4-hour. And you know, just a little bit of that knowledge bomb getting dropped on my friends and followers. So thanks a lot, guys. Crypto Trend Trader signing off.